I would say we're talking about, is it a good opportunity to go buy Boeing right now after it's had a lot of news out about the MAX 8 crashes, which we're going to be covering quite a bit on this channel. Before I get on to Boeing stock, guys, today's my first time using my new microphone and the new lighting, so I hope it looks okay. If you could comment down below in the comment section how it looks for you guys and how it seems, that'd be absolutely awesome. And if you could give the video a like as well, it really helps the channel and the video out with the YouTube algorithm. Now, Boeing has been one of the most talked about stocks over the last year, obviously most of it due to the MAX 8 crashes, and every week we kind of have a new story come out from about what's happening with Boeing. Early on this week we had the news that Warren Buffett could be buying the shares, some Boeing stock, which then meant the stock went up absolutely huge, and then the total opposite happened. And during the investigation that's going on in Boeing right now, and then we had some emails come out about actually how bad the Boeing plane was from some employees, so that then sent the stock back down. So it's kind of been a crazy kind of year for Boeing. And like I say, today I'm focusing more on what's going to happen with the stock because of the MAX 8 kind of crisis, rather than is Boeing stock a buy, because I think pretty much everyone can kind of agree Boeing is a great company, and if you were to hold it 2 to 5 years, it probably would go up for you and you'd be up on your shares. But is the valuation right now, with all the problems that Boeing has, is it the correct valuation right now? So Boeing's trading around $329, which is kind of looks like a support for Boeing. It hasn't really dropped below it. Now, even though I'm a long-term investor, I look at short-term trends just to see where the stock's going to go and what's happening. And in the short term, Boeing is sitting at a support of 330-ish. So if it was to drop below that support, it'd be really interesting to see where Boeing goes. Now, obviously, it's held that support for a while, even with a lot of these negative news right now. One of the reasons why is I think because the stock market has been on a rally, it's quite easy for bad performing stocks or stocks with bad news to hold them supports. If you were to have the stock market to pull back 5 to 10%, it'd be interesting to see if then Boeing was to break that support and where the stock could go from about 330-ish. Now, I'm also going to say, while we're talking about stock prices, I'm surprised Boeing is not a lot closer to a 52-week low when we consider the amount of problems that it's had and the kind of effect that it's had on its EPS and kind of the brand damage that Boeing has had. I am a bit surprised it is not a lot lower towards its 52-week low, but when we look at it, people are very happy to hold on to this stock just because they know like the monopoly they have, and it's going to be, you know, a stock that will carry on going forward in the next 2 to 5 years. Now, if you've been living under a rock for like the last kind of 2 years nearly now, the big problem that Boeing has had is to do with the MAX 8s, and there's been 2 plane crashes, which is totally Boeing's fault because they installed a device without telling anyone that kind of counteracts where the engines were on the plane, because it was sending the plane down a little bit. So they had a device which then kind of levels out that kind of engine placement. But the problem is this device has caused planes to nosedive, and because pilots have had no training on it, they don't know about this device and have been unable to switch this device off. Now, if Boeing was to recommend training for these planes, they said that the pilots wouldn't need them because they're very similar to what they had previously. If there was training and this device was shown to the pilots, then when this happened, the pilots might have been able to change what happened to the planes when they were nosediving, and this is all kind of backfired on Boeing. And that's why the stock's down really, and it's been talked about so much at the moment. So now I'm going to check out some key indicators to see how cheap this stock is, or if this stock should be a little bit cheaper right now. And the first thing I always do with stocks is check this PE out. Now, it's hard to check the normal PE out because it's a little bit messed up because of the earnings damage and compensation that Boeing have had to pay out. That has kind of affected the EPS this year. So I've gone to the forward PE, which is a forward PE of 16. We've got a dividend yield of 2.49%, which is one of the reasons why people do get into Boeing stock, and I'll be talking about how safe that dividend is going forward. Obviously, Boeing does have a fantastic balance sheet. So the first thing I'm going to say is that Boeing would probably be a $400 stock if it wasn't for this MAX 8 crisis, maybe even more with this stock market rally. Now, the first thing, the PE, how cheap is this PE? Now, forward PE of 16. Boeing normally trades around about a 15 to 25 PE range, so a forward PE of 16 is towards like the lower end of the PE range. So it does say that it's a little bit discounted, but it's not extremely below what it should be. So it does say that right now the PE is kind of at a bit of a discount, or the stock is a little bit of a discount, but it's not an extreme discount out there. So that's kind of the one signals that I'm getting from the PE right now. The next thing about Boeing is April is going to be a massive month, because that's pretty much where they've guaranteed that the MAX 8 is going to be back for a lot of the plane companies out there that are using it, and they're going to need it for April, because with summer being one of their main seasons for holidays, they want it back for then. Now April, if we've also seen the MAX 8 not come back when Boeing said twice before, and that's obviously affected the stock. So if it was to move further than April, obviously that's going to cause some problems for Boeing. Now in that time of April, what's going to happen is Boeing will have to get the FAA approval for the plane again, and also it's going to have to train the pilots, because they're saying they're going to actually train the pilots on the MAX 8s right now. Now the FFA is a really interesting one. Obviously there's an investigation going on Boeing right now, but the FAA are obviously in a bit of a sticky situation, because they've allowed this plane to fly basically, and I think that now they are going to take it a lot more serious. I reckon potentially if the FAA might actually, I think Boeing might be really close to a patch and then installing it all in the planes and getting the pilots training. But I think the FAA are kind of proving a point right now of like, listen, we've not done a good job, and our reputation's tarnished as well, and they're going to drag this out for Boeing and make it quite hard work, because they want to kind of prove a point of like, Boeing, you've made us look like idiots, so we're going to actually like go a full investigation, drag this out and prove a point to you now. So I think more of this April deadline is not really in Boeing's hands. I think it's in the FAA hands and how they're going to deal with the situation. And obviously, if we've seen how deep dive they're probably going to be going into it, it seems like they've also found another fault in the MAX 8s while they're doing this investigation. So I think that kind of theory of that they're going to be, it's kind of on them on this April deadline. And if the MAX 8 isn't back in the air for April, obviously that's one big thing that could really send the stock down from here. Now the dividend is probably one of the big reasons why people do invest in the stock, and the dividend safety. Now Boeing previously used to make cash flows a big thing for companies, and they were making about 2 billion free cash every quarter. Since the MAX 8 grounding, it's cost Boeing about 4 billion over the 2 quarters it's been grounded. So it's costing them about 2 billion a quarter. Now Boeing has about 10 billion in cash, so they can carry on losing 2 billion a quarter for quite a while before we start talking about dividends and dividends being cut. Obviously this would have to go on for a long time for it to really affect Boeing's dividend. Obviously, it's hard to tell because they'll be paying a lot of compensation in this quarter. It'd be interesting to see what numbers come out this quarter. But it's obviously not in too bad of a place, and it probably seems like the MAX 8 will be back up in the air before it even causes a problem to the dividend side of it. But obviously, Boeing has a fantastic balance sheet, but it is, slowly is chipping into Boeing stock right now. So it's not causing a big, massive problem right now. But if it was to carry on, past this year, then we'll start talking about this dividend safety going forward. But I don't think that'll be a problem for Boeing. So overall, my kind of opinion about Boeing right now is that it's kind of going to be a big 3 months really, or 4 months for Boeing, because my feeling is if the stock market pulls back, and also that's the one big thing with Boeing at these sort of prices, and as well as the stock market pulling back, is April. If the MAX 8 isn't back up from April, that's going to cause another quarter that's going to be a problem for Boeing. And also we have the stock market rally, which has saved Boeing slightly. And if the stock market was to pull back 5 to 10%, which I think it should do really, because it is at quite expensive prices, how much can Boeing hold on to that support? And also if the FAA causes problems and it doesn't get the safety certificate before April, then how much will that hurt the stock, and will people start to get a little bit more nervous if they delay the return of the MAX 8s again? So for me, with all these kind of reputation damage for Boeing and the problem it's caused, I kind of feel like Boeing should be a little bit closer to its 52-week close. For me to be worth getting into this stock, I'd like to see it below $300, to be honest with you. Below $300 is where I would like to buy the stock. So at the moment, like I said, I think it's a great company, and long term it probably be a great investment, but for me, I like to see a little bit more discount below $300 before I get into the stock anyway. And that's kind of my opinion with Boeing right now. So I won't be buying unless it drops, and hopefully it will drop, and then I'll get into the stock from there. But that's me talking about Boeing today, guys. If you could subscribe, it'd be amazing. Give the video a like. Remember, give me a review of the sound and the lighting, so I know if to adjust it for like the next video. And I'll see you in the next video.